This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. Generative AI is everywhere right now, but implementing it in a meaningful way is a whole different story. Whether you're a scrappy nonprofit or a fast moving startup, the challenges of adopting AI go way beyond just plugging into ChatGPT. Today, we are diving into what it really takes to bring generative AI into both nonprofit and for profit organizations, the obstacles, the opportunities, and the practical steps leaders can take to move forward. To help us unpack all of that, I am joined by Stephen Huff, someone who's been working at the intersection of technology, strategy, and education for years. He advises businesses and nonprofits alike on how to make AI work for them, and he brings a really grounded, no nonsense perspective to the conversation. Stephen, welcome to the show.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Let's get started with the very basics. What do you do today for a living?
Well, last couple of gigs, I've been working building back-end systems for medium-sized corporations that are in bad shape.
Very good. And explain a little bit more on that and take us through your story. Take us back in memory. How did you get started in technology and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, I'm actually very thrilled to be where I am right now. I think if you're in this business, you see that it's a very historic time. I think the story started for me, in childhood. I was luckily one of the first generations that was born with an exposure to computers. My father bought a Commodore 64. People probably don't even know what that was, but it was a 64K total memory. That's all the memory that it had. And we programmed on a cassette recorder. We saved our work in BASIC on a cassette recorder. And we would sit at our kitchen table and write little video games. We wrote like a, what do you call it, a pitfall, where the little guy swings on the ropes over the pits and he goes through the obstacle courses. And of course, then I went to school, got out in the real world, and I came across sitting in a graduate class, I came across a really fascinating word, bioinformatics, which was a blend of computers and my educational experience, which is at that time microbiology, genomics. So that really changed the world for me because it landed me a gig at the University of Houston in my mentor's laboratory, where I completed a doctorate in bioinformatics, which in turn landed me a very lucrative SMART fellowship from the U.S. government, the DoD in particular. In fact, that was one of the first cohorts. There was only 30 of us in that class. The next class had 300, and it went to hundreds after that. And from there, I went to the Air Force Research Lab, worked there for a decade or so, built their first bioinformatics lab, and then wound up here in D.C. as a consultant. And that's where I've been ever since.
Amazing. How is it to work for the government and the differences between the private sector? Is it too different? Is it not that different at all? What is your experience?
9 day different. I'd like to use that word work with air quotes for the government. I worked for the government. I enjoyed being a government scientist. I enjoyed working at the Air Force Research Lab, a lot of top-notch people there. Primarily, I'm talking about the military personnel. They were very intelligent. Most of them had also PhDs, as well as being mostly colonels and generals and SES types, admirals, typically the kind of personnel that I worked with. They were very, very experienced, very skillful, and very hard to beat. They like to win, and they know how to do it. The civilian side of the house, though, isn't that pretty, and you probably see some things going on in the U.S. government right now that I think reflect that. And I won't comment on the politics of the thing, but I can tell you, having been victimized by the bureaucracy that's being dismantled right now, I think it's something we have to do periodically. So I did not enjoy working for the government at all. There just wasn't enough to do. That's why I'm back in industry. I like to stay busy. I like to be hands-on. And mostly what they do there is project management, and it's very high-level stuff and not a very productive place to work. I hope I didn't pop your bubble.
No. It's very, very clear. I don't want to. I don't want to get into politics either. I did internships for government, and they were great people, and there were also not so great people that were
Yes.
not really doing much.
And there you go.
Which
That's
is
the
which
thing.
we can just leave it at that, right? But
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what killed it. There were so many people like myself that came through with high ideals only to find out we're not working as scientists, we're working as bureaucrats. So I would say really it was my lack of understanding and my misconceptions about the job that disappointed me. If I had known what it was, it would have been a great gig. I probably wouldn't have taken it. That's the
right.
thing. If I had known what it was, I wouldn't have done it. But I'm very happy working in the industry where the bottom line counts and people more or less try to get things done.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about that. Today, you wear multiple hats for from consulting in AI to serving on nonprofit boards. What does your current workday look like, and how do you balance these different domains?
So the nonprofit work, of course, is all paid and not volunteer. I've been on a couple of different boards. I was on the board of a fairly large regional theater, which was interesting. Working with actors and directors and producers and stagehands is just an amazing experience. They're really a unique. I've never had so much fun. They're just a unique kind of people. Working my current nonprofit role, I'm the president of the Maryland Writers Association. I have been for some time. I've been working with them about 8 years now, and most of that's, of course, done in the weekends, in the early mornings or the afternoons after my professional work is done. And I'm happy to talk to you and elaborate on that more because, like we talked about before in our prep, that there's two different worlds to this whole AI question. And that's certainly one perspective. And then during the day, mostly what I do is rebuild these back-end data systems for companies that are like, let's go do AI. And then they go to their back end and they're like, yeah, we thought we had a Ferrari, but we got a broken down donkey cart. We can't do AI with a donkey cart. So I turn their donkey carts into Ferraris. That's essentially what I do.
Okay, so let's dive a little bit on that one. Tell me about that. Tell me what are the biggest barriers to AI adoption that you see in those companies in the for-profit space and what you're doing and how you're helping them.
So when I first started out, like I said, I think, the relevant experience begins as a bioinformaticist because before that I was working, before I went back to grad school, got the doctorate, I was working as a consultant, going out to the job sites, putting in the software, very much on the ground. Since that time, I've typically worked at a more strategic level. So I can tell you that exactly the problem that I see, and in fact, that's how I make my living. The problem I see with corporations, at least the medium-sized corporations that I'm experienced with, both in healthcare, this is in sort of media and public relations, the company I'm working for now, there's a fintech element in both of those. But the problem they all have is that they have all kinds of money, they have personnel talent, they have the desire, they have the board's approval, funding to go do some big AI project, and then the back end just isn't there. Their data sets are not, and their data systems are not properly positioned to handle that kind of a workload. That's the big failure.
It always goes back to those data systems being able to handle what they want to do with AI most of the times, would you say?
I might be biased because when I started out, I started on the more on the front end of the stack, like I said, as a bioinformatics, sort of developing things. But over time, I stopped being hired as a data scientist to do the modeling, and I became a data engineer. And now they call me a data architect. And I think that's primarily because before you can do any kind of really serious AI modeling or really any kind of application, practical application, you have to have a back end system that's staged for that. And so I think the government I mean, that's what I did for the government essentially as well, was prepare their back ends to handle this new technology that's available on the front end. So the need for the data has pushed my expertise back to the back end. I no longer work on the front end because there's too many people doing that, and there's not enough people that are interested and skilled enough to do the back end work.
Tell me a little bit about what does it mean that when you get deep into it, is it organizing data? Is making sure that the data is sound, the structure? What are we talking about?
All of that that's always the groundwork, right? Like we have to have a data system, a data set. We have to have the system that serves it. So those fundamental things are always very much in need. And typically, I would say really probably almost without question, without variation, as far as I know, they're working on some kind of a relational database, like a Microsoft SQL Server. I see a lot of Postgres out there. I see some MySQL, but the government liked MySQL a lot. So those relational systems handle front-end transactional loads very well. They are not staged to do this other stuff very well. So I'd have to say that it's really as much, those kinds of considerations, those basic things that you just mentioned, but really it's the platform.
Okay. And so when you're trying to leverage AI, do non-relational databases work best for those cases? And are you rewriting anything? Sometimes I see that the language being used can make a difference as well, right? Python plays very
Yes,
well with AI, some other language
right.
doesn't, etc. What are some of the steps that you start taking to correct all of that?
Well, I'm sitting in kind of an unusual shop here. They have a C# middle layer, which is kind of unusual because by now most companies have migrated their closer to their front end, so they'll have something like just there's a million of them out there to do the UI design. Put the web and the phone app out there, but usually they're doing some like a Java or React, Node React a middle layer. It's very thin, and then they're sitting on top of a relational database. So those relational databases can handle that kind of workload very well. I typically don't. I'm typically not getting rid of those systems. What's
Okay.
happened over time is they've started loading these analytical burdens that you've mentioned onto that transactional server, and it's starting to become not only non-performative in the sense that it's not really geared for that, but they have to build in a really weird middle layer to make it work. So the middle layer grows and grows and grows until it becomes incomprehensible. So to me, the idea is that you keep that SQL Server most of the time, and then you just pair off that analytical burden that's inappropriate and move it onto a new space. And typically for me, that's going to be Databricks. But if you're working at the very high end, like at the National Institute of Health, where I worked for a while, you're going to use something like Palantir. But those
Got
are
it.
the two big ones that I deal with. Yeah.
Okay, okay, I appreciate the detail there. Let's talk a little bit about nonprofits. What are the challenges you see on that side of companies?
Money. Always money. In the corporation and certainly in the government world, there's no shortage of money to throw at AI initiatives. That's huge chunks of budgets are being initiated. So when we're talking about in the nonprofit space, I'm not talking about usership. We don't use it. We don't use it for anything that I know of. And in fact, what we're actually talking about is the flip side of the coin. So in the corporate for-profit space, the impetus is the push is go get AI, bring it in. If I could do it today, they would just ramp it up and go nuts with it. If I didn't have to build out spent 6 to 18 months building out the platform first, they would just go right to it. On the flip side, working with a bunch of writers and artists and telling them, hey, this AI stuff is great. Yeah, you get the other effect, like no, we're purists and we don't want to do that. In fact, this first of the year, I wrote a book called what is it? Prompt generated media using artificial intelligence, and it was all about how to use AI for writers who
Right.
are not very tech savvy, how to use that to make things like cover art, which is extremely expensive, and we get as artists, as writers, we get ripped off all the time. I can't tell you how many thousands of dollars I've thrown away in this business being ripped off, and cover art is a big problem. And I put that out there, and immediately the backlash was, "Oh my goodness, that's AI, that's terrible." And I always want to respond. I'm like, well, okay, you're a writer and you're an artist and you're a purist. Are you writing your, poetry and your prose with a piece of charcoal on a cave wall? Because if you're not doing that, then, how much of a purist are you really? So that's the challenge in the nonprofit world that I work in. First of all, having money to adopt it, if we wanted to use it as a technology, is a dream. But then on this artistic side, the push is, no, don't do it. We hate it.
Do you see differences between different generations? Like maybe older are more, they don't want to do it, but younger generations, they just, or even people that are getting into the field right now, it's maybe a common thing for them or not yet.
I think that there is a generational gap there for sure. There always is in technology. So I wouldn't even really address that because that goes without saying. Within technologists, though, within the land of people in this business, I don't see any real resistance or fear of it. Everybody's worried it's going to take their job, and even us in our business, we're for the first time really, we're like, oh yeah, this stuff. But when you really look down and like you start using like generative AI to do something like I do, you find it's woefully inadequate. So we're not worried about that. We're just
Yeah.
anxious to make money out of it, implementing it. From a personal perspective, I'll tell you a sad story. My mother, many years ago, sadly died of Alzheimer's. So she
Mm.
was one of these long-term care facilities, which was a brutal experience in and of itself. But when I was there, one of the things that I thought would be more problematic about being in that personal state is, hygiene, the fact that people have to clean you. Well, they already have these machines that they basically put you in a big bowl and power wash you and lift you out. It's all automated. The only thing that's not automated is moving you from one place to another. So I
Right.
really feel like the generation that's coming up now, my children, they're going to embrace AI because they're going to see it doing things like that for them. And they're just going to accept it. I don't see any resistance from. For example, I have a son in high school. He's going to be a senior this year. No fears, no worries. Fully embraces it. Doesn't think twice about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see the same thing. In your work advising both types of organizations, how do you help leaders, right? From moving from understanding the potential of generative AI to actually integrating that into their workflows?
I've been doing that most of my professional life. As a bioinformaticist, by the way, I typically walked in two worlds. It's a blend of two technologies, biology and computer science. So if you talk biology to biologists or computer science to computer science, they're both like they're engaged, they're understanding. If I start crossing the wires, which I have to do all the time, their eyes start to close, they start to nod off. Biology boards computer people, computer stuff boards biology people, and the same thing is true about this AI stuff. So when you start talking about, oh, we could do this, we could have personalized avatars with live voices, that customized voices that don't just put up a report on web anymore. They talk to you and say, well, your
Yeah.
company has these stats. They're all for that, and they're wide awake. But when I start telling them, well, you're going to need to implement this, you're going to have to spend money on that, you're going to have to hire these new personnel. And by the way, in the back end, like you mentioned earlier, it probably requires a change of language. I implement for Spark and PySpark using a combination of Python and SQL, which is what PySpark is. So when you start talking like that, they don't want
It
to hear
is
that.
true.
So yeah,
So you have to translate it and empathize and understand how each of them think, what's important for each of them, and just say the right words so that they go like,
yes.
oh, okay, now I get it.
I'll tell you what the trick is, and this is true for any new technological advance that I've learned over the years. If I talk to you about AI and all the problems that you're going to have trying to implement AI and all the things you have to do, this is new territory. You're going to start immediately thinking, but there's alternatives. There's this guy on the phone. He's telling me I could do this in a week with this plugin. But what you do is you mentioned, you remember last year or the year before last, or just right now on this other side of your business space where you're having this problem. What is it tied to? It's tied to the fact that your data systems and the platform that's running on aren't adequate. They're not modernized to serve that need. This is that same problem, and no guy on the phone that can do it in a week with the plug is going to fix it. You need me. You're going to have to hire somebody like me to come in and do some significant rework on your system. That by the time they come to me, they're usually 3 tries into it and they're very desperate. So I don't have to sell them. But I know that there's a lot of selling that's been done in those 2 or 3 attempts that have failed, they just haven't been listening. They
Right.
don't want to hear that. They want to just go do it. That's the same with any new technology. Just go put us on the internet. Get us a shopping cart. We want to do, quantum computing, right? Well, how many people have quantum computers? That's going to be the next one.
That's an interesting one. Can you share an example you're really proud of? It can be a nonprofit or a for-profit, whatever, where AI made a tangible difference and how it looked like and what it took to get there.
I wish I could, because I build the systems and then other people do that work right now. I can tell you that I've built some really phenomenal models, for the government and for a couple of industry partners. Time series modeling, I think, is very powerful. One of the more frustrating aspects of the roles that I'm in is that I build the system, and right when I get to the part where I'm going to be able to do the cool modeling stuff, they're like, we don't need you anymore. We just hired you to build the system. We got these other, very and they're much cheaper than I am right now. The data scientists, they come out with a certificate. You can hire them for about a third of what they pay me. They don't need me to do that work. But the one success story I do have, you can see it on my Amazon site, and hopefully you'll start to see it among other Maryland writers here, because I've been working very diligently to share this technology with them, because I think it's going to save so much heartache and so much money. They're not going to get ripped off nearly as much if they can do it themselves. Is being able to translate that the benefits of artificial intelligence into that nonprofit. Well, those people they're like me. It's a hobby for a lot of them, and a lot of them, they don't make a lot of money, and they spend every extra penny they can on it. So if they can get a little edge, man, the light bulbs go on there immediately. I like that. I get an immediate reward for that.
That's amazing. As you look into the future, where do you see the most promise for generative AI? What new possibilities could emerge over the next few years?
Well, I've been sitting here. I've had a dream for a long time, both as a professional as an artist. So I had this idea many many years ago. And I know I'm not alone. As a bioinformatist, as a microbiologist, as a genomist, that I would be able to sit down at a keyboard and type in, some kind of human language that would then translate into some kind of genetic system. So, for instance, I could build some kind of a chimeric frog monster with bat wings. Maybe
Right?
there's a really good need to need a frog to fly up there and eat bugs. I don't know. You can imagine a million different things you could do with that kind of technology. So I can't do that yet with the genomic world. That's probably still a ways away. But in my free time, the last couple of weekends, you know what I've been doing? Writing a movie. A movie.
Okay.
I've always wanted to just take one of my stories and make it into a movie. So I have access to these applications now as an artist. I can make the music. I can make the characters. I can do the backgrounds. I could do all the video. It's live looking. It looks like it's made with a camera. I can do the voices. It's not really great. All of this stuff is not really. You could tell it's an amateur, and it's I'm spending pennies rather than millions of dollars. But I could even make the lips move now to the words when they speak. Blah, 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 That's amazing. I can make an entire movie, and I'm just sitting here in my underwear doing it in my spare time. So that's what I would say. Is like, I want to make a movie, man, a
It's
whole movie.
amazing. It's amazing.
It is
And
amazing.
and where do you get the inspiration for the plot, the characters, and everything? Is this something that you have a creative side that it's always thinking about these things, and you have many ideas, you just need time and tools to get them out there?
Well, I do have that. It's kind of a personal thing, and it gets kind of weird. People look at me like, "But you have a PhD. You can't really believe this." But as an artist, I'm free of all the scientific stuff. I can do what I want as an artist. I have a muse that visits me on occasion. The ideas and all that are running all the time, but I can't sit down and write unless that guy's sitting on my shoulder telling me what to write. So
Okay.
I live my entire existence for my entire life for those moments when he visits me and we can sit down and write something together. But I'm thinking of the stories right now. Like right now, I'm finishing a sci-fi story about old people that get regenerated to go fight a war just so they can die. And I'm about to write another one about an insane asylum, a military insane asylum where really weird things happen. What I'd like to be able to do though is just take those short stories or the chapters out of my books and put them in AI and have them do the whole thing. They're still, I don't know, a couple of years away. I used to think it was 50 years away. I think I'll be able to do that in 2 years now.
Pretty close. It's pretty
Problem
close.
is
You
so will
will,
everybody else.
yeah. But then it becomes super personalized, right? Because now, instead of, just, okay, I'm browsing through Netflix, I don't know what I want to watch. The algorithm keeps pushing stuff that I don't want to see. What if I could just, prompt the type of story that I want to see and get it
There you
super
go.
personalized for me, right?
And it would be. And probably what you'll see is, I think, the equivalent of Hollywood, what do they call them? Studios, where, yeah, it'll be a personalized story about you, but it'll be in the world of, The Walking Dead or the
Yeah,
world of
yeah,
some soap. So it'll be your personalized story. And of course, the thing is about the green economy is the idea is that a lot of the things that we'll be buying and spending our money and our time on will be those artisan sort of personalized coffee mugs and pictures. And so why not? television shows and movies and music. Are you a fan of Spotify or any of those mainstream movies,
I
music streaming?
I use Spotify a lot. Yeah.
Let me tell you about something I've noticed lately. I'm a big fan of U2. I love Bono. I love his voice. I love that band. And I'm also a big fan of Silver Sun Pickups, which is kind of a newer band. What I'm noticing is there's about 4 or 5 bands out there that have a singer that sounds just like Bono. And there's about
Mm.
4 or 5 bands out there that play music and have a very similar sound as Silver Sun Pickups.
Yeah.
I think those are all artificially generated. Uh, I think
It
about
might
half
be.
the music I'm listening. Yeah, especially the new stuff. They have band names and they're supposedly have people in them. I think that at least in part, if not in total, it's generated by that generative technology already.
I I don't doubt that there's a lot of that. And honestly, depending on the type of music, right? I'm a lot into jazz lately, and jazz is more, I don't know. It's so indie, you know, there's no money to be made really there, right? It's like an
Yeah,
organic place where there's not much being generated that way. But I use Suno, I use, Udio, and I create music artificial. I'm a musician. I like the real deal, but at the same time, I like playing with the AI to brainstorm ideas, right? So
have you used it
I
to make
feel
any
you.
music? Have you used
I
it to make any music?
Yeah, I'm not published, yeah, but just to play around with it. I use
Yeah,
Suno to play around with it and go like, okay, make me a song that has this style, funky type song, and has a lyric about blah 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 blah, blah. And it works.
as a,
It's very super
yeah,
interesting.
as a musician, you could probably see it. Like if I say, go draw a picture or make a piece of music, I think it looks awesome and it sounds great. If I say go write a short story or it's good, but it's got a lot of flaws. I can see it right away. So you as a musician, you could probably see that same kind of
Yes,
flaws in that. To me, it sounds great. To you, it sounds. I
commonplace.
think in 5 years, 2 years,
Yeah,
yeah,
you get that
in two
feeling
years,
of
you won't be able to say that.
no, it will be hard to be able to tell. And I think I think there's also the virtual experience and going with I mean, flowing with the algorithm on whatever that's going to be in the virtual experience. But I also think there's a kind of a renaissance of the live experience, right? Do you want to see
Yes,
the live experience? Go see people doing it in
absolutely,
your face, right? And so
absolutely.
it's into, like you said, we are living very, very interesting times, and it's just,
Yes.
I'm excited, super excited.
Me too. Me too. Because we're gonna, you look like you might be about the same, maybe a little bit younger, quite a bit younger actually, than I am. But we'll probably live long enough to see this transition take place. A big part of it. And
Yes.
I don't know if you're a big fan. I know obviously we're talking about AI technology. I think that the other side of this coin for that future is, of course, robotics. And I don't know if you pay attention to what's going on. You see the machines, but I saw this thing now where they have these. It's basically powered by water. It's a
Yeah.
hydraulic arm, and it moves. It looks, and it's power. It looks like so you take that kind of lifelike. It doesn't just look like it. It actually kind of works in a similar way. And you put AI in that, and the next thing when you go
Dude.
to a nursing home, go to a hospice, you're going to be tended by what looks like people, but they're not going to be people, and you're going
Yeah.
to like it better, probably. They're going to like it better, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings a lot of questions, and we could do a whole new episode on that.
Could. You sure could.
But it's definitely interesting. Steven, I have one final and very random question to you. Um, what do you do when you are not working or writing movies?
Well, I try to stay out there in nature, right? I don't like I have a tricycle. I used to ride a bicycle, but I got too old for that. So I have a really nice little tricycle. I make wheel covers for it, and I live in a really beautiful place. So I try to get out there and walk or ride the trike and hang out with the kids and the dogs and the wife and all that. Yeah, because I don't know, like you're doing the podcast as a nerd, a double nerd, because I write computer code and then I write. I'm here in this chair in this office all day otherwise. So I hope you
I
get out there
get
and get some sunshine occasionally.
Yeah, I do. I like surfing, swimming.
Sweet.
The music, it's again, it's like indoors, super indoorsy, right? But the other stuff takes me outside, luckily. So yeah. Um, Steven, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope that maybe we do another episode in the future. We talk about robots and some other cool stuff.
And
And stay in
anytime.
touch.
It's been fun. It's been fun, and I'm so glad you invited me. And I do look forward to hearing from you in the future.